Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. My camera got moved. Welcome to the Insiders. I am Fitz. Our guest today is Scott McFarland. Yeah, that's Scott McFarland. Yeah, that guy that's Boscoe's boys, but he's more than a boy. It's confusing. Cole Carmody, Ryan Gilbert, Brien Hanley. And by the end of this hour, I'm going to assure you that we will have solved nothing. It's my guarantee to our listeners. We will deliver you no piece of heart over the men, and we cannot lift your joy anymore for the women. And that's my pledge. Guys, welcome to the show. Cole, how was your Monday? Were the students good? Did they behave?
You know, it's the second day of the semester. It was my first day back, actually. On Thursday, we had school. I was not there. I was in Manhattan at a coach's clinic for baseball. So I got to see all the beautifulness that is Manhattan, Kansas, a snowy Manhattan, Kansas. The kids were good, but I would rather have been in Manhattan like I was this weekend.
Okay, well, that was more of an answer than I expected. I'm glad you're back to forming young minds. Scott, how are things over at Boscoe Boys? Are you up over like 12,000 episodes now?
No, not quite. We're quickly approaching Boscoe's Boys 1K. I think that's going to hit sometime in May, sometime around there. So we'll see if Bill Snyder unblocks me so he can be our guest for that episode. Not going to hold my breath, but I'm on the GoPowercat Insiders podcast. I know he watches. So Coach Snyder, unblock me. You and Sean can come on for Boscoe's Boys 1K.
You got a problem here. He's blocked me too, so I doubt he's watching tonight. He blocked me, which is all the indication. I need to know that he's not actually the one running that account. Big B, we had a nice show today. We're wearing the same clothes. I thought one of us would mix it up.
No need.
No, too much effort. I really haven't done a damn thing since we posted our show. I've done nothing. It's Monday and I'm loving it. And speaking of loving it, hi Ryan Gilbert, how you doing, man?
Hi.
How do you like the opposite of me not being mean to you? Oh,
it's so weird. Good. I've never experienced this. But Cole, when Cole was in Manhattan, we had some drinks at Tanner's and we invited Fitz to come with us, and Fitz did not come.
That is a true statement.
Did not. I meant leaving the house. I've discussed with Charlie maybe putting a Tanner's location here in the basement because we do have a bar, but he hasn't got back to me. That's calm. Scott, we kind of live in a fishbowl at GoPowercat. We're on Twitter too, but we're around our customers mostly on the message boards. What's your sense of the actual level of frustration right now with men's basketball? And do we judge it too much by the loud voices, the most dramatic of the voices?
Well, I'm so in the world of Twitter, I might even hear louder, angrier voices than you guys are getting in your fishbowl just on your message boards. I can speak from two different perspectives. I'm in a handful of group chats, and I'm really the only degenerate who is addicted to Twitter. I used to call it the Bluebird. Now it's the Black X. And I'm the only one who sees everything on Twitter. The folks even not on social media, they're pretty frustrated. I think that there is a level of frustration, and then I hate saying apathy, because I don't think that's true. I see the meltdowns after every single loss. People don't not care, but there is a level of, okay, they're down by 8 in the first half. I'm not even going to bother keeping an eye on it. I'm going to switch it over to the women's game. I'm going to switch it over to the NFL playoff game. And then I'll read some quotes from the post-game press conference and get mad all over again. I think there's a very real anger. It feels a little bit similar to, that first downward trend of Bruce Weber without the folks who are longing to be right. It's the frustration. We know what it feels like to have relevant and fun and meaningful basketball. Now it seems so far away. There's just an anger and a sadness to it. And that's what I see. Again, you guys have a pulse on your subscribers, but it doesn't feel like there's much hope right now. And I think almost a pessimism, even looking ahead to 2025, 26, which is scary. We're not even halfway through January, and folks are almost throwing in the towel for next year and saying, all right, can he turn it around for 26, 27? That's a scary situation K-State basketball fandom finds themselves in, because we've seen you can't turn it around just through the portal. And I don't know what pieces you can keep around to have that continuity for next year. That's the scariest part for me.
You just answered about 3 topics. That was it for the insiders. Scott was way too thorough. We're not used to being thorough. And so our podcast is over. Big B, I sense also, to go with the frustration of the men's basketball program's shortcomings this season, it came on the heels of the way the regular season ended for football. That was also not fulfilling and fell short of expectations. I just feel like one has spilled into the other, and the frustration mounts. Even though the football team won the bowl, gave you a good taste in your mouth as you go into the offseason, I just feel like all that football frustration just went over to basketball and has been amplified.
Yeah, I think so too. The difference is that the football team underachieved to an extent that I think the expectations were a lot higher than maybe they should have been. But the team still had a good year, relatively a good year. The one loss to Houston was a horrible loss, but the others were not. So, you go back and look at it. Yeah, maybe these are some games that K-State could have won. They didn't win, but it's not like they were just terrible, terrible losses. They weren't, outside of Houston. Basketball is totally different. And not only is basketball losing to teams that maybe they should beat, basketball is getting their butt kicked. And that's the difference. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. The only thing that I would disagree with Scott is that, he said the portal, you can't necessarily change it in the portal. You can. You just got to get the right people. You have to get the right people. Everybody is using the portal to their advantage. It's not just one school. Every single school out there is using the portal to their advantage, and they're getting 4, 5, 6 guys a year. Everybody's doing that, but you have to get the right guys. It doesn't mean you can't not recruit high school kids, because you still have to do that, but you have to get the right people, and you got to have an eye for what's going to work and fit within a group. You can't just take this, and this and think, okay, well, it's all going to fit together. Other schools are being strategic in how they use the portal. Kansas State's didn't do that. They just picked guys and just said, okay, it may fit, it may not. We'll figure it out. And there's not an X and O guy on the coaching staff, and they can be as mad at me as you want. I know basketball too. There's not an X and O guy on this coaching staff that can coach guys to get open, to do the things that we need to do to be able to score enough points to win. Period. End of story. And you don't have a guy out there that you can just throw the ball to and say, go get us 25 points tonight. That doesn't exist on this roster. That's the problem, is that they just didn't do the portal right. Plenty of teams use it. I'll use the team that I root for besides Kansas State. Louisville has an entirely new basketball team coming off of a year where they won 8 basketball games. Nobody stayed. They're 11-5 right now and second in the ACC. So it can happen if you do it right.
You had to bring up Louisville because now I'm afraid that you just said that it can be done after an 8-win season, thus dooming Kansas State to the 8-win season. I know your mojo. I know how it works. Cole, how did we get here? How is this happening?
Well, you talk about expectations, guys. Oklahoma State in football was picked to finish 3rd in the conference, and they finished dead last. Kansas State was picked to finish 8th in the Big 12 preseason polls for basketball. I don't know if they're going to finish dead last, but I don't think it would surprise anybody if they finish in the cellar. So if you're talking about falling short of expectations, I'll listen to that. But we really didn't know how good this team was going to be before the season. We thought they might be pretty good. you look at the pieces on paper and you think, okay, if it goes well, this is a team that can make the NCAA tournament. But I don't think anybody necessarily was sitting there saying this is a top 25 team in the country that's going to compete in the upper half of the Big 12 conference and make a run in March. That's just not how they were built in the offseason. And Ryan, you can attest to this. They missed out on some guys who you said, go get the ball and go get a bucket. They missed on some of those guys in the portal. And I think you're seeing the backup options struggle because they missed out on some of those frontline guys. And so you're right, Brian, you bring this up. They have to get the right guys in the transfer portal. It's not easy to recruit at the top, but it is, and it can be done to recruit in the middle. It feels like in the portal, K-State either went for the highest, and they got a guy like Coleman Hawkins, who was in that top tier. They didn't really go for any of the guys in the middle. And so the guys that they got when they missed out on the guys that were at the top were maybe some guys towards the lower end of the spectrum. Not saying that they're bad basketball players, but they're not producing for K-State this year. So it's an interesting recruiting strategy. But again, Fitz, to answer your question, how did we get here? They just haven't won. And for whatever reason, it's just not working.
Well said. Ron Gilbert, I'll argue I'm blue in the face that this is a talented team. They brought in some talented players from the portal, but I mean, it's like 6 random ingredients thrown on a pizza. You might like all the ingredients, but put together, it's a piece of crap pizza. And that's just the way this team is. There's nothing tantalizing about this team right now. They don't seem to be meshing together. Their flavors aren't mixing. And they're vomit inducing. That's might have gone too far with that one, but it's not working. This group isn't working. And you're our main basketball guy right now at 8:13 on this beautiful night. That might be cold out. I don't know. Don't go outside. Solve the problems. What can they do right now to help themselves get better?
Man, first and foremost, it would be nice to have a full roster, but instead of Chor, one of the best players in my eyes heading into this season is not there anymore. So you are stuck with what you have. So to change things, Fitz, to answer your question, man, I'm not getting paid the big bucks. I really don't know what, I mean. I
can vouch to that. Yes.
The group. Yeah. Fitz doesn't pay me anything. This group is what they are. They're a 7-8 team right now. Fitz, you mentioned the talent, right? This team's talented. I think they're versatile, they're lengthy, they're athletic, but those are kind of the only boxes. There are a lot of boxes that when Cole is mentioning the portal and kind of going after players, Kansas State, not only this offseason, but last offseason, missed out on a number of players. And those guys were probably more talented and more all this and that. But who's to say that we wouldn't have these exact same problems, even if Kansas State had gotten who it wanted, just in terms of some of the buy-in and effort off the court, all that stuff, you name it. That's the biggest issue for Kansas State is in the portal. You can get the talented guys, but if you're not, I don't know if they were told by someone they trust that this guy's going to be, effort and buy-in are not going to be issues and all that stuff. Who knows why they missed on some guys in that regard. But, Jerome Tang said effort wasn't the issue from that Houston loss, and I don't necessarily disagree, but rebounding when that's 44-20 in favor of Houston, that's not telling of a great effort. So there's been flashes, there's been times where guys are collectively giving it their all, but Fitz, that you asked me what would I change, what needs to change, it's got to be buy-in and effort. Like I would take Austin Budke, like a walk-on who actually played meaningful minutes in Big 12 play by the time he was done with his K-State career. Like you're not going to get that unless you are a hard worker, right? And I don't know if this team has enough guys who, at 7 and 8, it's pretty clear and obvious. I don't know if they have enough guys that game in and game out, 100%, practice facility, off the court, all that stuff are locking in the way that they need to.
Scott, I almost feel like these coaches have spent so much time looking at basketball players. This guy can do this and this and this. And there's more to it. As Gil's just said, there's more boxes that need to be checked. And I feel like they missed some of the boxes that might be important to being a team basketball player in the middle of Kansas, to be real honest. You got to come here and understand what you're buying into. And I just feel like they came here to get a paycheck. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I feel like the coaches need to spend some more time looking at character and actually finding out who wants to be here for the right reasons.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because you look to what they did in that very first year. They went out and found guys who had a chip on their shoulder, who had something to prove, and quite frankly, had proved it at a lower level. You had Marquise Noel, who proved that, hey, he could be a player in the Big 12, but his coach left and he's too small. And we've heard the whole, arrow quiver analogy that Jerome Tang had with them, but it was Desi Sills who flamed out at Arkansas, but he was able to make an impact at a lower level. You had Keontae Johnson trying to prove that, hey, he can be healthy. He can play through his season. You had Bebe, a mature man who had a wife and I think one or two kids, who's like, hey, this is my final year. I'm trying to put what I can on the floor for this team. And you could go up and down that entire team. Last year, I think that Jerome Tang got burnt because Naquan Tomlin had to leave the team for whatever reason. We don't have to get into it on this one, but I think he became obsessed with finding dudes, being able to, his words, if you lose a guy for the season, hey, you have more dudes. I think he got too caught up in creating an NIL war chest and going out, winning bidding battles and trying to put together an all-star team. And I think he just failed miserably. I think he thought he could fix Doug McDaniel. He had all those problems at Michigan. Couldn't even go play on road games. I don't know if that's gotten fixed. Coleman Hawkins, for as good as he is, he was just a third-team All-Big Ten player, and we were needing him to be an All-American for this team to succeed. You could go up and down the entire roster. Ryan mentioned it. Chor just pieced out. I just think that this staff got way too focused on getting money, going out there trying to buy the best team that they could. And not only did it backfire, it's become a national joke. If you look at some of these national sports podcasters, almost every single game, one of these guys with a blue check with a national sports podcast is talking about how this is one of the most expensive rosters, and now you have a losing record. And I really hope that Jerome Tang gets back to that first year where, hey, you're finding guys with something to prove that come in willing to work instead of just trying to create an all-star team, because it did not work at all.
I'll butt in real quick here, Fitz. I think it was a couple weeks ago. I think it was Jareem Dowling mentioned on one of their Field of 68 podcasts, the challenge of motivating guys. And in this NIL era, when a guy gets their paycheck or gets their money, how can you keep them hungry? Back in the good old days before this NIL stuff, you say, hey, you got to work hard day in and day out to get to the NBA, to get that at next level. So then you can get that paycheck later on in life. Now, if they're getting it, it's a challenge. And it's not a challenge that, K-State has dealt with particularly well.
And I'll say this too, guys. Scott, you bring up some great points. And for avid video game players, specifically sports video game players like myself, maybe some folks watching or listening to this can relate. But whenever, especially this new college football game, whenever you start a dynasty, you want to go out and recruit all these 5-star kids. It doesn't matter if you start your dynasty at Appalachian State or if you started at Texas. The first people you put on your board are like the top 10 players in the country, and you want to go get them. Well, guess what? When you inevitably don't get them, then you lose out on the potential to get those 3 and 4-star kids that could make an impact on your roster. Again, I go back to that, guys, because again, it's like you get your paycheck hits, right? We all have that feeling when we get our paycheck and then we want to go out and buy stuff. Well, then maybe that's not such a good idea. Why don't we put that money in the bank and come back, and maybe with the second paycheck, you can go out, instead of buying one big thing, you can get 2 or 3 smaller things, which will probably be better than that one big thing.
I feel like he got screwed at Christmas time. I feel like Cole did not get the gifts he wanted, and he's kind of sneaking that topic into the podcast here.
What's a paycheck, Fitz? I don't know what those are.
Come on, man. I'm going to send you some cookies here soon. Jeez. Big B, Scott brought something up. I haven't voiced this because I was so deep into the topic, but I do feel like things started going south before last season with the Naquan Tomlin situation. Not that I'm blaming anyone, but I feel like it changed Jerome Tang and maybe he knocked him out of character a little bit, if that makes sense. I don't feel like he's quite been the same guy since, and certainly the teams haven't been the same.
It's hard to say. I mean, it doesn't seem like he's been the same, but if we're being honest, K-State missed on guys last year too. Now, Naquan would have made a huge difference in that team, but how much difference are we talking about? I mean, were they going to win another 8-9 games with them? Probably not. Maybe they win another 3 to 4 games, maybe 3 to 5 games, somewhere in that range. That probably would have been enough to get into the tournament, though. Having said that, to step on it even further, like you mentioned, we want to get dudes. I'll just say this. It seems like he's out trying to outkick his coverage a little bit here. Going for the top guys with everybody. Cole's right. Look, yes, I understand you want to go get the top guys, but you know what? K-State doesn't recruit at the top level. Okay. And regardless of what anybody wants to believe, you don't recruit at the top level yet. You can get there, but you have to work your way up. You can't have one run to the Elite Eight and all of a sudden we're recruiting the same guys as Kansas. It doesn't work that way in any level. I'm sorry. And that's what we got caught up in. I don't know if anybody wants to say that, but it's just the truth. You can't do that. I mean, you can even look. Florida Atlantic went to the Final Four. Do you think they recruit at the same level as a Florida or a Kentucky? No, they don't. Matter of fact, their coach left because he wanted to go get better players because he could get them at a bigger school. I'm not saying Kansas State is small potatoes. That's not what I'm saying at all. All I'm saying is, when has Kansas State, outside of Beasley and Bill Walker, ever gotten the best players in the country? You can build a great roster with a bunch of 4-star guys. I'm not saying 3-star guys, with a bunch of 4-star guys, which is just a step below of what the top people are. Kansas State is well equipped to be that, versus going out and getting, and I'll just say it like it is, man, second-rate guys that think that they are the top dogs, and they're not. That's what Kansas State has this year. Guys that are not top of the line, even though we gave them top of the line money. We just missed. It's okay to say that. We missed. You got to start over. Got to do something different. How it gets better this year, I don't know, because the one thing that they absolutely do not have this year, Fitz, is a leader. They do not have a leader, not even remotely close to one. That's what they did have the first year that Coach Tang was here. They had a leader, and everybody knew who it was. You could go down the list and give people, I'll give you $1 million if you could tell me who the leader of this basketball team is, and nobody would be able to tell you.
No, you're right. And it's a problem. It's kind of been an ongoing problem for K-State basketball, because I felt that way often about the previous staff. They didn't really have a leader. They didn't develop a leader, and I thought this staff would be better at that. I'm very disappointed. We're getting some great comments over there. I see the super chat. We'll get to you. As I'm going to use it here in a little bit to transition topics.
If
but
it's real quick, can I butt in 1 sec? Big B, you mentioned.
Why are you the way you are?
Big B mentioned getting 4-star guys, right? Not the 5 stars, because you don't want to shoot too high. 3 stars are too low. Big B, do you understand? And I'm not like picking on you, Big B, but Day-Day Ames, RJ Jones, and Buddy Rich, that's literally what you were asking for. And K-State got that. And then K-State
Can't run them off.
Lost 2 of them from the portal. And obviously Buddy Rich didn't play against Houston.
Don't run them off. Play them.
So
that's what I would say.
That's your problem.
Those guys
you can
are
get
on
those
the
4-star
roster.
guys.
Yeah, play those guys. Just don't run them off.
And see
guys that aren't.
And I think the way last year went is what put us in this situation, because how Jerome Tang built last year's roster is exactly, in my mind, what I wanted him to do. You bring in 3 4-star guys. In theory, you brought in 2 high-profile transfers in Tyler Perry and Arthur Kaluma. Again, if you want to make yourself sick, look what Arthur Kaluma is doing for Texas this year.
Exactly.
And then, yes, you lost Naquan, but in theory, you were bringing back 3 guys, Naquan Tomlin, Cam Carter, and David Gasson from a team that achieved. I think Jerome Tang had it right last year. And again, I think the fact that things popped up and they weren't able to get into the NCAA tournament, that made him I probably not panic, but he's like, all right, well, that didn't get the job done. We have to try something new. And I think that if they just could have snuck into the tournament, we might have seen a different roster building strategy from Jerome Tang, and it wouldn't have dug this hole that we find ourselves in.
Okay. I agree with all that.
Yep.
Back to the question I was going to ask Ryan Gilbert.
Sorry.
Stormy cyclone. We have a cyclone over here. They're claiming they're surfing, and I don't know. I assume they're not in Iowa. But I look at Iowa State, what they're doing right now. I see the Baylor template. Great athletes, maybe not a bunch of stars. They just got guys that want to play together and play hard. I don't see them buying a roster out of the portal. I see them kind of finding pieces that fit together. You're building an engine, and you just can't do it with random pieces. I feel like the template's there. He knows the template, and he's gotten away from it because he thinks he has a cheat code that doesn't work. Gills?
Are you tossing it off to me?
Yes.
I agree.
You're a pain in the ass tonight.
Well, I wasn't expecting. I mean, I agree.
I
don't have
told you
nothing
this
to
was
add
for
to that,
you.
sir.
So I just don't feel like he's paying attention to the lessons he's already learned in his career and putting together a roster. Big B, you comment on that.
I 100% agree. I still think you can get guys from the portal. I think you can buy guys from the portal. It's fine. You just have to do it right. Just what you said, Fitz. You got to learn the lessons that you got to use the lessons that you've already learned. You know, he understands what works. Look, I mean, Scott's right. They had the roster right last year. You lose a big piece, you lose those 3 to 5 games. If you get those 3 to 5 games, K-State's in the tournament. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They are. Well, then Scott, it's not that I disagree with you. I think he did panic. I think he did panic and say, well, that didn't work. We got to change everything around, when he didn't have to do that. And they changed it all because maybe somebody got in his ear. I don't know what the case may be. Or maybe he thought, you know what? If I do the same thing and we lose one guy, then it's all going to fall apart again. But if I go get a bunch of guys that I think are really good, even if we lose the one guy, we can still be really good. Well, in actuality, that isn't the case, because I'm still not sure that we have a guy on our roster that's as good as Arthur Kaluma, that's as good as Naquan Tomlin. Definitely not Keontae Johnson. We just don't have that person on the roster currently. And so when you sit back and you look at it, it's like, well, you had it right, but you panicked thinking, okay, we lose one guy. But you could say that about a lot of teams across the country. If you lose one guy, yeah, your team's not going to be as good, man. I mean, look at Kansas. If Kansas loses Hunter Dickinson, how good are they going to be?
Yeah.
I mean, just think about that for a second. What team is as good? And you could, I don't know if you want to say that Tomlin would have been the best player on Kansas State's team or not. But if he wasn't first, he wasn't third. Okay. Well, how many teams in the country can lose their first or second best player and is going to be as good? I would venture to say none. Kansas State is in that same boat. There wasn't need to panic. We did, and we're paying the price for it.
And this is really straightforward, guys. We're comparing and talking about Iowa State and Kansas State. I'm all for that. Listen, Iowa State's top 3 scorers are all transfers, okay? Yes. Curtis Jones, he came from Buffalo. Keyshawn Gilbert, he came from UNLV. And then Joshua Jefferson came from St. Mary's. Here's the thing, guys. All those first 2 guys, it's their second year in Iowa State's system. Kansas State hasn't been able to retain guys for more than a year. That's the problem. And then it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt for Iowa State. They have a guy who literally grew up in Ames, who's their starting point guard, who's wanted to play for Iowa State for his entire life and never once thought about being anything other than a Cyclone. The guy got an offer when he was in 8th grade. So The thing and the reason why Iowa State is so successful is because their players are there, they get there, they stay there, and they buy in. And if they don't buy in, then they hit the road and they get somebody else who buys in. We can sit here until we're blue in the face and talk about why Kansas State struggled, but the inability to retain players, regardless of talent level, is why they find themselves in the position that they find themselves.
100%. And they have a leader.
Yep.
Yep, absolutely. Let's make the transition. Here we go. Super chat from Zach. It was nice of Jerome Tang to spend $5 million and have the women's team end up being the powerhouse here. I don't think we're surprised, Scott, by the women's team. We knew they were going to be good. And let's be clear, the environment of recruiting and the portal and NIL is radically different between men's and women's game. You would normally say, the women aren't getting the money and that's bad. But as we're seeing what happens with the portal with a lot of money, maybe that's good. But Scott, Jeff Mittie needs to be credited. He looked at his roster from a year ago and evaluated why they lost in the second round. And he went out and fixed that. He went out and got some great complementary pieces to go with what he had. And dude, this is the best K-State women's team maybe that I've ever covered. And the context of that, yes, is Kendra Wecker and Nicole Oldie, Lori Kane, and all of them. Yes, I see that. This might be the best one.
Yeah, and it is a message to all these fans who are frustrated. Jeff Mittie's done it exactly right. You have 3 homegrown stars who've been playing, that they're now in their senior year, with Aoka Lee and Serena Sundell. Serena Sundell was left off the midseason watch list for National Player of the Year. She is the single best distributor in all of college basketball, men or women, and she has 5 points and assists, double-doubles this season. No one else comes even close, but you have those 3 homegrown stars. You supplement that with Tamara Poindexter, who, again, did it at a lower level, first team all conference, an all conference type player. She wants to go play with winners. Boom, there she is. You grab Kennedy Taylor, who gives you that quality experience, depth behind Aoka Lee. And then again, it's not just, you can't bring in transfers, but you look at Zy Walker, second year in the program. She transferred in, but again, this is her second year in the program. You look at Amani Lester and the way she's been able to develop, second year in the program. Taryn Sides, true sophomore from Kansas, second year in the program, all taking these monumental leaps. Jeff Mittie is doing exactly what we're asking Jerome Tang to do it. And here, we're sitting on the cusp of what could be the first Big 12 championship for the women's program since what was it, 2008 was the last one. They're poised to be hosting for the second straight year. He's doing everything exactly right, and this team is so much fun to watch. They play with passion. They play with pride. They're out there, hustling, running all over the place, diving on the ground when they're up 30 on the road at Utah, just smoking BYU. It's everything I could ask for in a basketball program.
Yep, I agree, Cole. They rolled into Utah and just absolutely dismantled Utah and BYU. It was shocking because even K-State's good teams don't typically do that. They just completely dominated both those games against pretty good teams from start to finish.
Yeah, and I was a little worried about this swing, maybe not necessarily in the context of losing. The Utah game was a little scary. I mean, this is a Utah team who beat Notre Dame earlier this year, who's number 3 in the country right now. It's like, make no mistake, that is a really good Utah basketball team. It's going to make the NCAA tournament, and I don't know if they'll be in the conversation for hosting, but if they finish, second or third in the Big 12, that's a possibility. But they just dismantled them. And the thing with Jeff Mittie teams, at least in the past 3 or 4 years, is that they're really good at home, like really, really good at Bramlage Coliseum. But they have maybe struggled a little bit on the road at times. And so that was one of those games where I was like, this might be a tough game. And they found a way, as you guys have said, to just absolutely roll. And then BYU, another team that gave them a run for their money. K-State won that game at the buzzer last year in Bramlage Coliseum. Another game where you're like, it's going to be a tough place to play in Provo, but they, again, just absolutely steamrolled. And, you can always tell, especially in the women's game, which teams are elite based on their consistency in the fact that they're able to blow out teams. I mean, go look at what South Carolina does. They dismantle teams they're supposed to dismantle. And K-State is doing exactly that. There's a reason why. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I want to say they're 14-1 right now. They're probably about 11-4 against the spread. Scott, maybe that's a number you'd have to look up, but I want to say off the top of my head, that seems about what it is. Not that that matters, but the fact that they're able to just, even when they don't cover the spread, they're still absolutely rolling teams. And so, I have no idea. There is no ceiling for this team. Missy talked about that on our last show, but I don't think there's a ceiling on this women's team. Like, they literally can go just as far as anybody in the country.
Okay, now we're going to get into some controversy here, because I love the K-State women's basketball team. Because exactly, you guys just summed it up, and that's why I don't need to ask the other guys a question. You guys nailed it. The level of effort, level of focus, and all those things. It's a good team. They're doing all that stuff right. But I always like to point this out. Men's and women's basketball are different games. They're played differently because the size of the players are different. The ball is smaller, so shooting tends to be at a higher percentage in the women's game, which makes it more entertaining, which is a trade-off for a lesser level of athleticism. The men play above the rim, women play below the rim, but do it the right way. They're wildly different games. And so I don't like to gatekeep. If you want to be a women's fan, men's fan, good or neither, that's fine. But Big B and Gills, and you can wrestle over this topic or just sit there silently and be pissed I ask you this. I'm really tired of every time something's posted about the men's team, someone slides in there and goes, you got to stop watching the men, start watching the women.
Yeah.
Quit gatekeeping for other people, man. Nobody has ever, that I know of, on my message boards or on YouTube after one of my videos, like, said, quit wasting your time watching the women. You should be watching the men. Can we respect each other's taste? Maybe some people enjoy getting punched in the face repeatedly, and thus are going to watch men's basketball. But they're different teams. You can enjoy them separately, individually, however you want to, but don't tell people what they can or shouldn't be enjoying. If they don't want to be a women's fan, they don't have to be. They want to be a men's fan, okay. I mean, Gills, again, my frustration level with that is just annoying. You should be watching the women. Well, you're not going to browbeat people into watching a team. You're just not going to do it.
Yeah, if you're a K-State men's basketball fan, you probably graduated from the university, right? That probably can't be said for a chunk of other Big 12 teams right down I-70. But with Kansas State, it's because you graduated or you grew up a fan, right? Like, so the women's basketball team fits kind of what you're saying. Like, that's your team. It's a different game. It's all different. Of course, it looks different, but if you're a fan, you're a fan of that whole university, right? You should support baseball, volleyball. Ethan, I see he's in the chat right now. He does a great job covering women's basketball and volleyball. But like Big B, me and you are both Steelers fans. Like, I'm still a fan, even though they just lost to the Ravens in the playoffs. Like, I'm not going to give up on them. I might be angry, and that's okay to be angry and upset, and you want them to be better, and you think that players, coaches, all that should be held accountable. That's awesome. That's great. I'm not going to disagree, but it doesn't mean you should just ditch them, and you shouldn't also, like Fitz, you shouldn't tell somebody what they can and can't cheer for.
No, I 100% agree with you, Gills. It's just, I don't know why people get into that, but I do know why. I take that back. It's internet trolling. You can sit behind a keyboard and you can say whatever you want, and nobody's going to hold you accountable for that. So that's why people do it. That's literally why people do it. No ifs, ands, or buts. They get in, they tell you what you should do, and they know there's no repercussions that's going to come to them. And I'm not talking about physical repercussions, like nobody's going to punch them in the face or anything. But people, for the most part, are afraid of confrontation. So even if you were in a setting where you're just sitting across from somebody and talking, people aren't going to say certain stuff just because they don't like confrontation. But internet eliminates confrontation. So that's why people do it. And that's literally why. And it drives me insane too, Fitz, is, well, stop watching. You should watch it. Well, hold on a second. First of all, can't I watch both? That would be the first thing. Exactly. Can't I do both? I go, but you can't browbeat me or make me feel guilty on whether I want to watch one or the other. I'm like, you're just not going to be able to do that. it's part of being an adult. I can choose and do whatever I want, and you can't stop me. And no matter what you do or say, it's not going to change my mind. If anything, it's going to get me to continuously not watch this team because somebody said something to me stupid. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even want to be bothered. So you're right, Fitz. It's nauseating. But what I would just say is if you're not watching women, give it a chance and see what happens. Just give it a chance. And if it's not for you, it's not for you. I totally understand because like Fitz said, the game is totally different. Absolutely different. Women's basketball, or let me say this, men's basketball has gone positionless. Anybody can do anything. They don't always do it well, as we're seeing at Kansas State, but everybody do everything. Okay, great. Women is not that way. You have positions. They run plays. They back people down. They swing the ball from side to side to throw it inside. They use a post player. All this stuff in the women's game that they used to do in the men's game, but somehow they've decided, well, we don't have to do that anymore. It's just if you can beat your guy one-on-one, go do that. Women don't do that. They would rather let's run plays and get people open. Coaching actually matters a lot more. Not that coaching doesn't matter in men because you can see the difference between the good coaches and the bad coaches. But in women's basketball, coaching really matters because everybody's running plays out there.
Mm-hmm.
And part of this too, guys, like I think that there might be this misconception that K-Staters aren't supporting the women's team, but to me, that's blasphemous. Like, to even insinuate that this team isn't getting an immense level of support, they are, right? Like there's a reason why if you go to a weekend game and the K-State women are at home, 85% of that arena is going to be full. Like I firmly believe that they will sell out Bramlage at some point this season. And we've talked about this on other shows, but the popularity of the women's game coinciding with Kansas State being successful is tremendous. I mean, that's huge. And so this fan base, the K-State women's fan base, we talk about the vocal minority, right? Well, there's a lot of the fan base who isn't on social media that support these women because let's be honest, guys, like the townies go to the games. The locals are the ones who go fill up the arena for the women. So that doesn't always necessarily happen with the men, right? It's just the nature of the beast. But Kansas State has an immense level of support for this women's basketball program. And I think that that's only going to continue to expand. And them being good at the same time as the men being bad, it's just a strange and wild coincidence.
Well, let me just jump in just real quick. I apologize.
You're good.
As far as the basketball is concerned, Cole, you're 100% right. As far as filling up Bramlage, flip the men's schedule with the women's schedule on who they've played at home.
Right.
Is the men's going to sell out? Absolutely not. So let's take that into consideration too. When you think about it, look, the women just haven't played. Now, look, they're dominating everybody. But they just haven't played the high-level competition yet at home that they're going to. I mean, they're going to play some good teams at home, and it will get sold out. But if you were to flip that same schedule with the men, it wouldn't sell out either, regardless of what the record is. So I'm with you, Cole. I think as soon as some of that starts happening, it's going to sell out. So sorry, Fitz. I just wanted to throw that in because
right.
I think people get that misconception that people just aren't going. I go, well, that's any place, any fan base. It's like when you're not playing very good teams on a Tuesday night in Manhattan, Kansas, I'm not sure how many people are driving 2.5 hours to go watch that. I don't care who you are or anything. I don't care what it is. That's just my point. I think they're doing fine. I think the women are doing fine.
I agree. And let's be really honest here. It's a different price point as a entertainment product. Yes. And for townies, if you want to call us that, there seems like they should name a beer after. Anyhow, the townies show up. It's more of a family price point. It's more of a retiree price point, and it's a wholesome product. I get it. I mean, I'm all in on that, and they really are fun to play. And if someone wants to go see them, Scott, this week's a good week. I mean, you got home and home. 2 home games, Arizona State Thursday, Sunday, or is it the other way around?
Yeah.
But both teams are coming in, and there's tickets available. This is a perfect opportunity to get to Bramlage Coliseum to watch the women play. The men play tomorrow night, Tuesday night, and then then Thursday belongs to the women, and Sunday again at home. Do it.
Yeah, and I'd love to see great crowds. I know my secret day job, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get out there on Thursday, but I'm fully planning on getting out there on Sunday, and I've seen them live multiple times in Bramlage. I went up to St. Joe to see them play and take care of what's going to be a tournament Middle Tennessee State team.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun time, and you can see how if the crowd gets going, man, it can snowball on an opponent. And again, to Big B's point, neither of these Arizona schools are very good. I'd imagine you would, knock on wood, you're going to see some very entertaining blowouts. But look, I think it was mentioned in the chat, the February 5th, it's the pink game. That's versus TCU. Haley Van Lith, Sedona Prince, both of them on the preseason, midseason player of the year watch. That could be a battle for first place in the Big 12. Both teams are going to have a little bit of heated up schedule towards the end of January, but there's going to be some massive games. TCU's come to town, Iowa State, KU. I believe the KU game's on a Saturday. So again, I don't know if it'll sell. I don't know if it's going to be, what is it? Officially 11,000, whatever, but 8,000-9,000. That could be the difference. If things start going bad, I think back to that KU game last year. KU starts making a run. That crowd gets behind these women,
Yep.
and then all of a sudden, before you know it, you win by 15.
Yep.
And I have a blast. And look, I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do with their entertainment dollar or how to spend their free time. But if you're not a women's basketball fan, that's fine. Don't run the man show greatest hits from 1997 if you're going to do your jokes. At least be a little bit more original than the same stuff we've been hearing, since 1997, because these women are athletes. And if it's not your cup of tea, fine. But just get some new material. You've been running the greatest hits for 30 years. Just find something new to say.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Look, the game's changed a lot. And Serena Sundell's a perfect example of it. What's her height? 6'2"? I mean,
yeah, I think she's listed at 6'2". Ethan's in the chat. He'll let us know. What a great job he does covering the women, by the way.
Yep.
Shout out to Ethan.
If
you're not following him on Twitter, I don't know what you're doing. So shout out to him.
Nephew E. I'll take credit for that. That he's my nephew. When he does some knucklehead, Gills knows him. And 6'2", 10 years ago, maybe longer than that, 20 years ago, that was your post. And she's not 6'2" playing out of position. She's a point guard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The talent level on the women's side, and this is one of the things we needed to catch up, was the volume of talent. Not that there hasn't always been talent, but that talent would get consolidated at UConn and Tennessee, and all the characters. And that top of the pile has evolved a little bit with South Carolina and others, but there's now more talent across the country. And we're seeing when that talent kind of comes together at Kansas State, guys, this is a Final Four quality team. I thought last year's might be, but as you watch the tournament unfold, it wasn't. It just wasn't. Didn't have enough depth. Didn't have enough answers. This team has answers and depth. I'll be intrigued to see what they do. Let's shift back to the men real quick, Gills. Texas Tech tomorrow night at Bramlage Coliseum, followed by road games at Kansas on Saturday and Baylor next Wednesday. This feels like dead man's curve, and they're going way too fast or slow, depending on how the metaphor is. This doesn't seem like a good formula. Put in the context of what's coming up on the road, Tuesday night's game gets even larger for Kansas State, doesn't it?
Yep. When Jerome Tang, after the Oklahoma State loss, says that you need to try to steal some on the road and defend your home court, well, that's kind of thrown out the window based off of what happened against Houston. But still, you got to do your best to win at home, and it's probably not going to be maybe as rocking as Bramlage has been for Jerome Tang's good teams. But Texas Tech is coming off of a very, very emotional game against Iowa State, went to overtime, lost it late, and so there could be a hangover effect there as they come up from Lubbock, or they could come out with a fire lit under themselves. And K-State's the opposite. They just got dominated, embarrassed on their home court. Will they be down in the dumps, or will this kind of, ignite them together? We'll see. So both teams are coming off of losses in just such different fashions. But Texas Tech's one of the best offensive teams in the country. They shoot the ball really well. They take smart shots. It's kind of like Houston. Houston didn't necessarily take a bunch of shots, but Houston took very, on the season and against K-State, smart looks, whereas Texas Tech just loves offense. They get good looks. They shoot it a lot. So, Kansas State's going to have to step up its defense if it wants a chance to compete with Texas Tech in this game.
You know what, Big B? Kansas State needs to step up its defense. I thought Houston hit some hard shots. I thought Houston actually, they were impressive. It wasn't all K-State. 30 points it lost, you contributed, but it wasn't all K-State. But without defense, that cornerstone that can keep them in games, which kept them in games last season.
Yep.
I think that's the difference between these two teams. I think this year's team actually has more offensive potential, much more. Defensively, they're trash. And if they don't start getting consistent on defense, night in, night out, possession in, possession out, Brien Hanley, they're going to continue to get their ass kicked.
Well, it's kind of what Gills mentioned earlier, effort and want to. That's all defense is. It's effort and want to. And if you don't have either of those, it's tough. And then back to what Gills had mentioned before, saying that Dowling had said it's hard to get guys motivated after they've made their money. It's hard to get them to buy in. But you know what? I'll say this. That's the difference between the good and the bad teams. The good, they paid everybody at Duke. They paid everybody at Kentucky. They paid everybody at Kansas. They paid everybody everywhere. But those teams bought in, and they want to win. They want to go fight. That's the difference, is that when you have guys that buy in, people are going to try to defend and do everything that they can to win. When you don't have guys that are bought in, this is the kind of effort, the inconsistent effort that you see. And it's unfortunate. And I kind of feel sorry for Jerome Tang, because even though I believe this is his doing, I think he believed, because he's such a good man, that he believed that he could fix people. And sometimes you can't fix people. You've mentioned that before, Fitz, trying to fix certain individuals and get them out of stuff. And you know what? I just need to get them here, and they'll start to do things the right way. And unfortunately, that's just not how this works on the majority of the time. You can't fix everybody. You can't even fix most people. You can fix some people, but you know what? Those people have to want to be fixed. And it's hard to do that when you've paid somebody $1 million or whatever somebody's getting paid. And they're like, yeah, I'm here. I got the check. It is what it is, which is unfortunate, but it's not impossible. So I don't want to try to blame this on NIL or transfer portal, because everybody does it. Everybody's paying. Everybody's getting transfers, and people are winning. And we can win at Kansas State. It's gone off the rails. How you get it back, I'm just not sure. But to bring it full circle, Fitz, the defense effort just not there. Just not there.
I agree. Scott, what do you got cooking over at Boscoe's Boys this week or this month or this year?
Yeah, so we went 5 episodes a week from June all the way through the end of the year. We are paring it back to 2 to 3 episodes a week all the way through March, maybe even April. There is no off season in college sports, as you well know, Tim. But we'll keep rolling. I think, we're approaching 6-7 years with an episode every single Monday. So no matter what the situation, there will be an episode on Monday, even through the off season. But we'll be talking men's basketball. We'll be talking women's basketball. We're leading off every Monday show talking about the women. And again, it isn't everyone's cup of tea. But that's how I want to start the show. And we'll have different interviews and stuff on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, depending on the week. And I would just say, even if you don't like me, if you don't like what I say on my podcast, there's some other great fan podcasts out there. Aggieville Alley Cats, which is 2 law students, by the way, and they're keeping a podcast going while doing law school. Then the Cocaine Willie boys, I think they're going live during the Texas Tech game. So again, have that on your TV. They got in trouble going on YouTube showing the game live last year.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that, but you can watch along with them tomorrow. So shout out to some of my favorite fan podcasts. And again, even if things aren't going great with men's basketball, it's never been a better time to be a K-State fan when you're looking for content. Between us fans doing the stuff and all the great stuff that all you professional big J's, little J's, whatever J's that you guys are, there's so much great K-State content out there. So if you're not completely boycotting all of it, there's all sorts of it out there, and you just have to find your cup of tea, and I guarantee someone is doing that for you. So there's my
Thank
PSA.
you for not describing us as baby Jays.
I think I've told you this, and I might get kicked off. My mom was the Baby J mascot at KU when she was going to school there. So, that might have gotten me permanently banned from the Insiders. But, I know a Baby J.
You're overcompensating. That's what this is about. You're trying to make up for the family's deep, dark secrets.
We are old school Topeka, Kansas, house divided. My brother, of course, Cole knows him quite well. He was one of those unfortunate souls who got his undergrad at K-State, who kept wearing red and blue. He did get his graduate degree from KU, but house divided in Topeka, Kansas, just like so many families are. We are a walking stereotype. I'm not overcompensating. I'm just carrying on the McFarland banner, third generation. So
okay, fair enough. By the way, give your sponsors a shout out, because we don't have one on here. You've got some really great sponsors. Give them a shout out.
Oh yeah. So Manhattan Brewing Company, I drink a lot of craft beer. Manhattan Brewing Company, truly one of the best, right there in the heart of Points Avenue. And then they have a Wichita location, the NBC Lounge, and then talk to your local liquor store in the state of Kansas. They distribute all throughout the state. And then Charlie Hustle, I'm actually wearing the greater than 12 mascot crew neck sweatshirt right now. Great Kansas City company. They have the best officially licensed K-State gear in the game. So check them out. So those are my two sponsors. And I appreciate Tim, and I appreciate you letting me come on, because look, you are the original K-State podcast, and then you've taken over the YouTube world by storm as well. So I appreciate you bringing me on. And I think this is my third time on. And if you would have gone back and told me when I launched Boscoe's Boys that that'd be the case, I would have laughed at you in the face. But it's a wonder what happens when you turn 30. So
yeah, getting a little road behind you makes you see things a little bit differently. Boys, thank you. We'll have PowerCat podcast later this week. Go, Cole. What? Before we go,
I have to say something.
Do it.
So I was going to wear this shirt on the podcast tonight in honor of the Kansas and Kansas State game on Saturday. If you are looking for a t-shirt, I know we're not sponsored, but I just have to say this. TikTok is going away, but believe it or not, the TikTok shop has some pretty amazing things. There is a shirt on there. And if I could do the honors, I would love to stand up and grab the shirt right now. So keep talking. Okay. In 30 seconds, I'm going to show you this shirt.
I don't know what happened here. I seriously, I'm too permissive. Look at that. Yeah, I like it.
So in honor of Kansas and Kansas State, go get yourself from the TikTok shop before it shuts down.
Well, let me just say this. We have a lot of fun talking about KU, K-State, the rivalry, but I'm glad the University of Kansas is in the state of Kansas, because we know not everyone's cut out for higher education, so they need a place to go to.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.